Here at RHS Garden Wisley, rhododendrons are one of the stars of the spring garden. I'm going to show you how you can best grow rhododendrons at home. When planting a rhododendron, ideally it wants to be in a degree of dappled shade provided by some nearby trees, or generally on a planting on a north-facing aspect. Rhododendrons love a light, free-draining soil with plenty of organic matter content to help hold on to moisture. The important thing to remember is they need an acidic, low pH soil. And the way you can tell that if you've just moved into a new garden, for example, is by using a small soil test pH kit, or just looking around at what your neighbours have growing in their gardens. And if you're seeing other rhododendrons or things like camellias, it's a good indication that the soil in your garden will be fine for rhododendrons. When you come to plant your rhododendron, it's worth knocking it out of the pot and having a look at the root ball in its current state, both at the width and the depth. In terms of preparing your planting hole, it wants to be ideally 2 or 3 times as wide as the current root ball, and preferably no deeper, because rhododendrons are shallow-rooted plants when their roots want to be close to the surface. So once you've got your rhododendron at the right depth in the hole, you can then begin to backfill some of the loosened soil and then gently using your heel to firm it in. All rhododendrons are naturally shallow-rooted plants, and it's important to bear that in mind when it comes to the planting. So here we've made sure that the roots that would have been at the surface of the compost in the pot are at or above soil level. So once it's all nicely planted, it's important to give it a good soak and keep this up on a weekly basis throughout the summer if need be. And then I would follow up by a thick mulch of bulky organic matter. And here I'm using this composted bracken, which is suitable for ericaceous plants. Alternatively, you could use composted pine bark or leaf mould, place it in a donut around the plant, kept back from the main stems. If your soil conditions aren't suitable for growing rhododendrons in the ground, then they will grow perfectly well in pots. And the same things apply as when you're planting them in the ground. You need a container that's about 2 or 3 times the width of the root ball that you're planting in the pot. And the other thing to consider is planting depth. Planting it relatively shallow with the root ball flush with the surface of the compost. The main thing to consider when growing rhododendrons in pots is choosing one that isn't going to outgrow your container too quickly. And there are plenty of compact, slow-growing varieties that will suit this way of growing them perfectly. More so than when growing rhododendrons in the ground, when growing them in pots, they need regular watering and feed, with an ericaceous liquid feed once or twice a month during the spring and summer months while the plant's growing. And the other thing to consider is the growing media. And for this I would choose an ericaceous peat-free compost mixed 50-50 with a John Innes soil-based compost for greater longevity. Rhododendrons are a big group of plants made up of hundreds of species and thousands of named hybrids, but all of them provide great form, colour and interest throughout the year. Being such a diverse group of plants, it's possible to have different rhododendrons in flower almost the whole year round, with the season starting as early as December with things such as this rhododendron Christmas cheer. Some rhododendrons, in the case of Rhododendron arboreum, are capable of making enormous trees in woodland gardens. Meanwhile others, like Rhododendron rex with these enormous great paddle-like leaves, are an incredible sight. And this is Rhododendron racemosum rock rose, grown for its small leaves and masses of small bright pink flowers. Also, naturally more compact growing species like this Rhododendron pachysanthum are ideal for smaller gardens. This is a rhododendron called golden oriole, a hybrid that many people choose to grow for its beautiful pale yellow flowers early in the season. But like several other rhododendron species and hybrids, another reason you might choose to grow it is its beautiful cinnamon peeling bark. Most rhododendrons are evergreen. However, that's not without some exceptions. These deciduous types are more commonly referred to as azaleas. However, just to complicate things a little bit, you can get deciduous and evergreen azaleas. But all of these sit under the general umbrella of rhododendron. Once the rhododendrons finish flowering, one of the single best things you can do is deadheading. Like in any plant, removing the old flower heads before they set seed diverts that energy into healthy growth and better flowering the following year. Pruning of rhododendrons really can be on an as and when needed basis, mainly to control the size and shape of the plant according to the space you have available. So as you can see here, this plant has already flowered and it's now beginning to put on this lovely flush of fresh young growth. When you come to do your pruning of rhododendrons, the optimum time to do it is immediately after flowering, just before the young growth starts. So then you're diverting all this energy into what you've pruned. One of the main problems with rhododendrons is they can become leggy, and pruning is the best way to remedy that. So by pruning back to old wood, maybe to 60 centimetres or so, these cuts have stimulated a vigorous regrowth response. So what you might be faced with is a large overgrown rhododendron with a series of big stems with the flowers all way out of view. And the best course of action for that is some drastic renovation pruning. So in early spring, you can take the pruning saw to those big stems right back to maybe a height of a metre and a half. And what that will do is stimulate buds at the base of the plant. And at that point, don't be horrified by what you're left with, a series of bare stems. The act of pruning them hard in early spring will encourage dormant buds to break, resulting in lots of bushy, healthy new growth. When you come to prune your rhododendron, it's worth bearing in mind one thing, and that's its bark. And as a general rule, rhododendrons with this lovely cinnamon, smooth bark, often peeling away in these flakes, don't tend to respond well from hard pruning, whereas others with rougher bark will respond much better. Something you might come across with your rhododendron is this thing called bud blast, where a fungal infection will have caused the current season's flower bud to brown off and die. However, this is not really anything you need to worry about. The best thing you can do is pick off the buds, dispose of them, to prevent the fungal spores spreading to other flower buds and becoming a problem in future. I hope this has shown that rhododendrons really can be as easy to grow as they are beautiful. For more information about growing rhododendrons, head to the RHS website.